Hi there, this is Ranjit, and in this video, we'll be doing the full review for this iPhone 10. And I've been using this smartphone as my primary smartphone for the last 7 days, and I'll share my experience. And prior to using this iPhone 10 or the iPhone X, I was using the iPhone 8 Plus, and prior to that, I was using the Note 8 and even the Google Pixel 2 XL. So I'll share my experience about that. And before we proceed, here are the quick specs for the iPhone 10. As you can see, it's powered by the new Apple A11 Bionic chip, and it has a 5.8-inch OLED screen. And the other specs are there on the screens for your reference. So let's get into the review and let me share my experience with the same. And the biggest departure I would say for this phone is that if you've used almost any other iOS device, it actually as of now looks outdated. And even in the iPhone 8 Plus review what I did, you could see the title. I said it's boring. And this iPhone 10 has that new fresh device. In fact, it does not have any physical home button over here. Everything is actually done by gestures, and you might say like it's difficult to grasp, but trust me guys, within just after a day of usage I got used to this, and these gestures actually work very well on this. You just swipe to go back, and you just swipe from here to go to the multitasking. You don't have to actually hold it. I don't know why Apple said like this. You can just swipe like this and move to the multitasking. So once you get hang of this, it actually works very well. And the biggest difference is now this is the first time actually Apple is using a OLED screen, and it is a 5.8-inch screen. Though it's manufactured by Samsung, I have to say this is one of the best OLED screens that I have seen in terms of color reproduction. The color reproduction is actually very close to reality. So it's an excellent OLED screen, and it covers almost the entire length of the device, apart from that top notch. We'll talk about that top notch later. But again, in terms of the brightness also, it's very bright, and even in outdoor conditions, that is in direct sunlight, I didn't have any issues while I was using the phone. And the viewing angles and stuff are also very good. So it's a very good OLED display that Apple is using on this one. Now in terms of looks, yes, this iPhone 10 looks very modern, but the thing is that even the back is a glass on this one, and it has that, this is the white color one, they call it the silver. There is also the space gray one, and on this silver one we have the stainless steel rim. On the space gray, it's a darker shade. But I have to say this phone has a certain heft towards it, and now it's been almost 7 days since I've been using it with as my primary smartphone, and still if I use it single hand while I'm texting like this, it feels a little bit heavy. With two hands when you text and stuff, it's not the case, but with a single hand, yes, you definitely feel the weight of the device. So that is something that you have to note. So it's slightly on the heavier side because of that steel rim and the glass back. And now coming to this glass back and the steel rim, I would say as it's glass, now you have double chances of breaking it, and also the steel rim is prone to scratches. So I would say it's a very good idea to invest in a case, and I have been actually using it with a case because the repairs on the iPhone are very, very expensive. Actually, the screen repairs are cheaper, but if you crack the back glass, it's a lot more expensive. So again, if you're buying this phone, definitely invest in a case. Also, one thing that I've noticed is that the back camera actually has a hump. So if you keep it on a desk and press it, it will wobble a little bit. So that is also one thing that I've noticed. But again, if you put a case, that wobble goes away. So again, invest in a case. Now moving to the unlocking procedure, as it does not have a physical home button, in which we had the Touch ID for almost every iPhone. This is relying on Face ID, that is face recognition, and it uses IR blasters to do that. And actually I was very skeptical how would this face unlocking feature would work, but I'm happy to say that it actually works very well. For example, let me demonstrate. As you can see, you don't even have to press this power button, you just lift it up and it is unlocked, but you have to use the swipe gesture to unlock it. Let me show you once again. And you have to look at it and it just unlocks. So it's actually fast, pretty fast, but you have to use this gesture to unlock. So it takes almost half a second to unlock. So in terms of speed, obviously the Touch ID, you could just tap on it and it would unlock. But this one you have to actually look at it. If you don't look at it, it won't unlock. So that is one thing. But in terms of functionality, I would say the Face ID has been working very well on this device. I would say almost 98% of the time. And even in dark, that's almost pitch dark also, it works. So you don't have to worry about that. So I was very worried and skeptical how the Face ID would work, but that is not an issue with this iPhone 10. Also, now coming to another thing that I liked with this phone, and also the Pixel 2 XL had that, and even the iPhone 8 Plus had that. This one also has a stereo speaker setup. The bottom is the speaker, and even the earpiece acts as a speaker. And I have to say, it is actually pretty loud. You don't have to worry about it. Let me actually try to play one of my own videos and show you. And it's almost as loud as the Pixel 2 XL, slightly less compared to the iPhone 8 Plus, but still actually very loud. Let me show you. Let's see if the mic can capture it. Hi there, this is Ranjit and I have this Mi Mix 2 with me, and in this video we'll be doing the full review for this device. It gives the stereo experience, and the speaker quality is actually very good. So that's a good thing. I'm glad they have retained that. Coming from the 8 Plus, I really appreciate that. And now moving to cellular call quality, I tested this one. I also traveled a little bit to Mumbai and I was using the Airtel SIM with this one, and it worked fine. No problems regarding the cellular call quality, and even the earpiece quality is very good. And I also actually took a lot of calls via speaker phone, and none of the other parties actually complained. So even if you take a lot of calls via, they didn't even realize that I was using a speaker phone. That good the quality of the speakers and the microphone is. So if you take a lot of calls via speaker phone, then it's an excellent experience. And I feel that dual speakers are also helping with that one. But again, as with the iPhone 7, even this one does not have the 3.5mm headphone jack. So you have to rely on that dongle that is given if you have other headphones like I do. So that is an inconvenience and I don't like it. But Apple also bundles wired earpods, and I tested that, and the audio quality via that was actually really good. So that's a good thing. But again, you have to live that dongle life if you have a pair of headphones like I do, and I simply don't like that. Now this one is also water resistant, and Apple also supports wireless charging on this, but sadly the charger that is supplied in the box is not a fast charger. I just don't get it. Why haven't they given a fast charger? It's a standard 5-watt charger that you have been getting with earlier iPhones. So you have to invest separately if you want a fast charger. But a pro tip to you, if you have an iPad charger, you can actually use that, and that would charge this phone a lot faster. With the supplied charger, it was taking almost 3 hours to charge it fully, but with the iPad charger that I have, I charged it and it took about 2 hours. Now coming to the battery life, I tested this a lot, guys, and with various scenarios. And I would say in terms of battery life, it sits in middle of the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 Plus. It's not as good as the iPhone 8 Plus because I have used the iPhone 8 Plus for over a month, but it sits in the middle of it. To give you a rough idea, it will last for a typical working day without any issue. Even let's say if you leave your house at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and even if you come at about 10 o'clock at night, it will last you. But with the iPhone 8 Plus, with similar usage, I used to always have a battery life left of about 35 to 40%. But on this one, it was just around 15%. So definitely, yeah, for very heavy usage, still the iPhone 8 Plus will give you better battery life. But this one is certainly better than the regular, I would say, the iPhone 7 or even the iPhone 8. And if I compare the battery life with some of the Android flagships, I would say the battery life is very similar to what I was getting with the Galaxy Note 8. That is very similar to what I was getting with even with this iPhone 10. But if I compare it with the Pixel 2 XL, yes, the Pixel 2 XL is giving me better battery life compared to this one. Now, yeah, so battery life is okay. If you're coming from a regular sized iPhone, that is the 7 or 8, you will be actually happy. But if you're sort of used to the Plus series, like the iPhone 8 Plus, etc., yes, it's slightly less than that. Now, moving to RAM management, this was very funny that I've noticed. And this one, the iPhone 10 also has 3 gigabytes of RAM, just like the iPhone 8 Plus. The iPhone 8, the regular one, has just 2 gigabytes of RAM. But in terms of RAM management, this was not as good as the iPhone 8 Plus. And in fact, I would say if we compare with the other Android phones, for example, I was also using the Pixel 2 XL, which has 4 gigabytes of RAM. The Pixel 2 XL did better RAM management, I would say. It's not like every app will sort of reload, but after the fourth or fifth app, sometimes sixth app, when I was coming back, it was reloading the apps. And I think so. This needs a little bit of more optimization, because the iPhone 8 Plus, though that one also has just 3 gigabytes of RAM, was performing slightly better in RAM management. So certainly, yeah, I feel Apple could have put in more RAM considering the price of this device. But again, it's not terrible and it's not great, I would say. As of now, RAM management sits in the middle, but I hope Apple improves it with future updates. Now, as I've told you, it doesn't have that physical home button. So you use just gestures to move around. And I have to say it works very well. For example, I'm in this Twitter app right now. If I want to just go back to the previous app, I just swipe like this. And we went back to the YouTube app that we were running. So you can just swipe like this, moving between the recent apps. It works very well. For multitasking, you just swipe like this, and now you have your multitasking tray. So in fact, this actually works very well. The only thing is that for the control center, you have to pull it from here. So that is one thing that you have to do, which is a little bit awkward, but you get used to it. Now talking about this top notch, which actually houses the Face ID sensors and all that stuff. Yes, that notch is there. And to be frank, it felt awkward for the first day, but after that, I simply stopped noticing the notch. But because of this notch, there are some things that are not visible. For example, in earlier iPhones, you could easily see the battery life over here. You had a setting. We simply don't have a setting like that. So to check the battery life, you have to actually pull down this control center and you have the battery reading over here. And another thing that I've noticed is that I like to use the do not disturb mode a lot. With earlier iPhones, that was displayed up, but that is also not being displayed. And again, you have to pull down this notch for that do not disturb icon. So yeah, that top notch is there. I feel Apple should actually enable, give an update to show that do not disturb icon at the top, because one day I just forgot about it, and many people complained that I was not picking up the call. So yeah, that can be an issue. But regarding the top notch, after a day or two, you simply forget about the same. Now, in terms of gaming, also I did quite a bit of gaming, and the gaming performance is actually very good on this one, and it gives you a very immersive experience because of that stereo speaker. So the gaming performance is, as expected, actually really good on this one. And this one also still has that 3D touch functionality, and I use that quite a bit. For example, on the dialer, you can have your favorite contacts, and if you just hard press it, you get to that. Even for settings quick, if you just press it, you get to the quick settings and stuff. So this functionality is still there, and I appreciate that, and that works. So 3D touch functionality is there, and I use that a lot, I would say, in the keyboard for correcting. That is one thing that I've always used, and that functionality still works. For example, you can move the cursor, etc., by just moving this, hovering that. So the 3D functionality is still there, and it works. But one thing that I've noticed that we don't have an option to set the sensitivity of that 3D touch, what do you say, the taptic engine. That is something that I haven't noticed. Now let's talk about the cameras, because this one is also having that dual camera setup. And yeah, the iPhone 8 Plus also has a very similar setup, but on this one, optical image stabilization is actually enabled on both the lenses, and the wide one actually has a f2.4 aperture, whereas on the iPhone 8 Plus it was a f2.8. So when you use the telephoto lens in, what do you say, a slightly artificial lighting condition, it performs slightly better compared to the iPhone 8 Plus. But apart from that, the rear facing camera performance is actually pretty similar to the iPhone 8 Plus. And again, I would say it performs pretty well, the rear facing camera. It is neck to neck with the Pixel 2 XL and even the Note 8. Again, it's actually, all these three actually produce very good results, but in very low lighting, I have noticed that the Pixel 2 XL goes slightly ahead compared to the iPhone 8 Plus. it has those portrait modes. The Note 8 doesn't have the Note 8 also has the portrait mode, and I like the fact that with the Note 8 you can actually adjust the background blur, which is not possible as of now with both the Pixel 2 XL and this iPhone 10. But the iPhone 10, again, like the iPhone 8 Plus, has that the lighting effects, which can give a dramatic experience, I would say, and I liked that one. But now if we move to the front facing camera, the front facing camera performance, I would say, is not that great. Don't get me wrong, it will take good photographs, but again, I was comparing it with the front facing camera performance of the Note 8 and even the Pixel 2 XL, and both of them actually do a far better job in terms of front facing camera. This front facing camera also has that portrait mode, but I would say as of now it's sort of a beta product, because yes, it will take the portrait photographs even with the front facing camera, but many times it will actually blur your hair and the edges are not that great. In that respect, I would say the Pixel 2's front facing camera, it just uses the software to do that, is doing a far better job. Sadly, we don't have the portrait mode as of now on the Note 8. So for the front facing camera, yes, I would say the Note 8 and the Pixel 2 XL did a far better job. And when we talk about the video, one big advantage this iPhone 10 has, and even the 8 Plus had, is that for 4K video, we can record up to 60 FPS, which is not possible with the Galaxy Note 8 and even the Pixel 2 XL. They max out at 30 frames per second, but you can do 60 frames per second with this one. And also in slow motion, yes, all these three phones can record video up to 240 FPS, but you can record at 1080p with the iPhone X. With this one, it goes down to 720p. So again, I really like the fact that you can go 240 FPS slow motion at 1080p. So that's a big advantage. And yes, the video with the rear facing camera, let's talk about that first, is good enough with all these three phones. And even 4K, all of these phones do a good job of stabilization. But in 4K, in fact, I have posted a camera comparison video between the Pixel 2 XL and the iPhone 10. I'll have the link in the description area. When I was trying the stabilization, I was just walking with these phones, set them at 4K. The stabilization was actually better with the Pixel 2 XL. So yeah, with 4K you get some great footage, but when you're moving around you have to be a little bit careful. Now let's move to the front facing camera video. Again, here I was sort of disappointed. I would say again the Pixel 2 XL and even Note 8 takes better quality video with the front facing camera, and almost there is no stabilization when you use the front facing camera to shoot the video. If you're shooting a video and just walking like you do for vlogging, then the video is actually pretty shaky. And I don't get it why Apple didn't implement electronic image stabilization, because even in a lot cheaper Android phones, for example, this is the OnePlus 5, you can shoot a video with the front facing camera and you can just walk around and it stabilizes the video like crazy. So I hope Apple in a future update implements electronic image stabilization with the front facing camera. So now let's talk about the cost. You all know it's a very expensive phone, one of the most expensive phones as of now. And let me talk about the India pricing. In India, the 64GB variant is available for 89,000, and there is also one more variant, that is the 256GB variant, that sells for 1,02,000. So certainly very expensive phones. And again, you have to decide upfront regarding the storage, because again, iPhones don't have a SD card slot. I would say the 64GB storage is good enough for most people if you upgrade your phones every year. But if you are sort of a very heavy user, take a lot of videos, and if you're planning to keep this phone for almost 2 years, then I would say go with the 256GB variant. And again, the cost goes up significantly via that. So certainly a very expensive smartphone. But again, if you have the budget, I would say, and you like iPhones, yes, it's a good thing. Now let me actually read the conclusion about this one. I have already written, so let me share my thoughts about that one. Okay, to conclude, let's forget the pricing for a moment. Before using the iPhone X, I was skeptical about how it would work without the physical home button, that is the Touch ID that we are used to, and the new Face ID that will be used for unlocking the phone. And to be frank, I thought it wouldn't be a very seamless experience and would have been sort of a buggy experience. But within 2 odd days, I got used to the buttonless display. And I have to say, the gestures actually work a lot better than the physical home button. And though it's not as fast as the Touch ID, but that Face ID actually works and you get used to the same. The only sore thing is that the front facing camera is not as great as the Pixel 2 XL or the Galaxy Note 8. It's a bit rough with the RAM management as of for now, and surprisingly the iPhone 8 Plus was doing slightly better in RAM management, but I think so that should be solved with the OTA update, that is the iOS update. But apart from that, if you like iPhones and have the budget for the iPhone 10, that is the iPhone X, yeah, it's a refreshing change and the new way of using iOS. And I'm pretty sure in the near future other OEMs, for example Android OEMs, will start implementing some sort of face unlocking feature, and maybe even we might get buttonless navigation. So certainly a very good phone, but again a very expensive phone. If you have the budget for it, go with it. It's not perfect, as I mentioned, there are some flaws, but if those flaws don't affect you, it's certainly a great phone if you have the budget for the same. Again guys, that's it for now for this review of the iPhone 10. If you're still not subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. This is Ranjit and I hope to see you in my next video.